Wow. Yay.
Good morning, everyone.
Nice. All these names I don't know.
Well, you just may get to know them, Kelly.
I know. I love that.
Hello, everyone.
So everyone is muted right now, right? Okay.
Yeah, they can unmute themselves, though. I gave them permission.
Oh, very nice of you.
I know, right?
Hey, everyone. We'll just give it another minute to see if anyone else pops on here. But you are all muted. You can unmute yourself, but we'll probably just start with just kind of go an overview of intentions and why and all of those things. And then we'll open it up for some more. Then you can kind of pop in and ask questions and stuff. So how come I can't see everybody? Everybody's turned off.
Hold on, let me make sure that.
Do you have like a setting where we can only see Nikki's face? She's the only live, beautiful.
Well, she's checking.
I'm looking.
Well, mine automatically comes up stop video. So I just learned yesterday that you need to click on that to show the video.
Okay, that was my fault. I apologize.
No, that's all right. I was on a Zoom meeting yesterday and I learned it yesterday because I didn't know either.
Okay, you should all be able to put your videos on now. I'm so sorry. I accidentally hit the wrong button, I guess.
So everybody has to then choose to be
so you have to go down and do. You can click your video button on if you're on your computer. There's all the little icons that show up on the bottom, and over by the video is the audio. So you should all be able to start both. If not, put it in the chat box and we'll see what I'm doing wrong.
Right, we'll see what we can do. Okay,
or if you don't want to show your video, you do not have to. Please do not feel obligated.
I was going to say, maybe none of them want to be seen.
Please do not feel obligated. Yeah, you should all, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Brenda, we'll just know that we're speaking to you while you're working. Okay, so while we're talking, go ahead and mute yourself just to avoid background noise, and then we'll open it up and you can just unmute yourself. So welcome, yay, happy Saturday. We wanted to do an intentions call.
And who are you, by the way?
Oh yeah, hi, I'm Kelly Sheets. Yes. I'm Kelly Sheets, and I do the creativity experiment with Valori and Jean. So, and then I'm assuming you all know Valori and Jean Wells, the superstars here. So we started working together a few years ago, and then last year we started doing something called the creativity experiment, because so many people talk about wanting to be more creative, but they don't recognize that maybe some of those underlying things where they feel stuck or they doubt themselves, or they just feel, I should say we get stuck, we doubt ourselves, we just aren't sure what direction to take. And so we decided to offer something that would help move through those things. And so as part of that, we talk about intentions, and I'm gonna primarily lead this call. Not that normally when we do this together, it's all three of us, but I've been doing intentions for years and they've been so helpful for me. And I've kind of done the ins and outs in them. I've had fails with them and successes. And then Jean and Val also now use intentions. So I'll start with the basics and then we'll chime in, and Val and Jean will start to kick in here. And then we'll go to you guys when you have questions. But one of the reasons intentions are so... Yeah.
On a technical note, if you have questions, if you can, there's a reaction button on the very bottom. Oh, yeah. And if you click on that, it'll say raise your hand, and then it'll be easier for me to see who wants to chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So questions. Just yes. We're getting better and better at these Zoom calls to understand all the little stuff.
Yeah, all the nuances.
All right, carry on, Kelly.
Okay, so
her name down.
Yes, old school paperwork too. Okay, so intentions. So typically we, as a culture, people kind of get to the new year and then we think, I'm going to make some goals for this new year or resolutions. But what I found, and what a lot of people I talk to and work with find, is that those kind of things are so limiting because they're full of opportunities to judge ourselves and to feel like we're not doing enough. And then we cut out all these other opportunities that are available because we're so focused on this is how it should be and this is what I'm supposed to get done. So in an exploration, I started realizing I wanted to just hold intentions for myself. Well, if I was intentional in this way, then what might happen? What would happen if I wasn't trying to control it and stick to goals, and resolutions? And if I was more open, then what else would be possible? So intentions kind of set us in a trajectory. Instead of saying, I'm going to make 5 quilts in the next 6 months, it is more along the lines of, I wonder what it would feel like if I was to be productive and complete 5 quilts in the next 6 months. It's this opportunity that you may complete 10 quilts or you may complete 2, but the curiosity is on the experience we're having, not on the end goal. Because oftentimes we set goals and then when we get there, we don't feel very satisfied anyway. It's like the old adage that, money can't buy you happiness. It's the same thing. We strive to have money or success or certain gains. And then we find that, well, we've got that and now we're not really still fulfilled or happy. And we don't necessarily feel any more creatively engaged. So it's coming from a different perspective of looking at more possibilities for ourselves. And so it's setting a trajectory. And that means if I set a trajectory for myself, if I'm going to head to Portland from here, which is, if you don't know, if you're not from this area, it's about 3 hours over the mountains. And so I say, okay, I'm going to go over the mountains today. But if the weather's too bad, then I need to pull up my map and look for some other options. And so instead I might go up north and then over the mountains. I'm still going to get to Portland. The intent, the trajectory is to go to Portland. It might take me 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, depending on the weather and the conditions. And if I got sidetracked in the woods and wanted to take a hike. And I would look at each of those decisions based, I'm trying to give more visuals. Yes, because they're beautiful woods there. But just that idea of I'm setting on a course and I'm not going to be upset as long as I'm moving to my trajectory and I'm still finding that I'm aligned with my intentions, then that's what I want to do. Now, to go to intentions, if I was going to stick on I'm going to go to Portland example. If my intention was to have fun between here and getting to Portland, then I would make my decisions based on that. If I decide to drive over the mountain through the snow and ice, that's not going to be fun. So I will course correct. I'm still going to get to Portland. If I was going to have fun and it's the summer, I'd say, well, let's stop the car and take a short hike. Now I'm intentional. It's fun along the way, and I'm still on my trajectory to get to Portland. So to bring that back to real life, it's finding intentions that would allow us to enjoy the journey of creation, like all the way through. Are you laughing at my Portland example?
No, I accidentally kicked her foot. So I said,
okay.
I'm sorry.
I've never used that one before, but we're finding something to be intentional about, so that instead of getting to Portland and thinking, God, that was a terrible time and it was so stressed out and now I just wasted 6 hours of my life and it's no better, I want to make sure the whole way there, or what I might find is that by the time I get 2/3 of the way there, I don't want to go to Portland anymore. So instead of holding myself to the goal of I'm supposed to get to Portland, I might say, oh, I've realized along the way, I'm going to stop here instead. This is what I really wanted. And then I don't judge myself that I was supposed to have gotten there. Like if I decide I want to make less quilts in 6 months because it's so fulfilling and fun, and I end up making 3 that are like so awesome, then I've met my intent of like joyfully going through this practice. So those are some examples of why intentions started to become very interesting to me. I wanted to, when I leave the earth, I wanted to feel like the whole thing was an experience, not that I kept holding myself to these endpoints and then moving to the next endpoint and the next endpoint, and then it didn't feel very joyful. So when I'll say a couple more things, then I'm going to ask Val and Jean to step in here. I started really looking at who I wanted to be. And when I'm holding intentions, the word intention means something's held with tension, right? So you're holding this thing. And so I started looking at, well, I want to be, if when I die, I be a really kind person, or I be really fun, or I be really joyful, then no matter what I did and who I touched, I could be appreciative and proud of that. And so I started looking at, oh, that's interesting. So what if I was to be, just say joy right now. What if I was to be joy, and then everything I did, I was intentional about how could this interaction, how could this client work, how could this creative project, how could this trip to the grocery store be infused with joy? And then it changes the whole journey of the making or the doing. And so at the end, regardless of what happens, I still can feel like, oh yeah, that was, I stayed aligned with who I want to be in the world. So that state of being is so important, because as you all know, if you've been around someone who's angry, they can say really nice words, but you can feel their anger, right? You see people create art, if they're emotionally fused, that art expresses it. You can feel it. You're like, there's something about that. You feel it. So who you're being is a really important exploration that will affect all of your creativity. It will affect everything you put. I mean, you're all makers. So it's everything you do with your fabric. The choices you make are going to be infused with how you are that day. So that curiosity about how you are is a really interesting exploration. So starting with that, and then you make intentions of who you want to be and live your life. And then you can develop the specificity of, now what are those specific things that are going to keep me on track? Like if I'm going to Portland, I need to be more specific. I need, this car would be the best with these tires. I need gas tank. I need some snacks. I might need hiking shoes just in case I get sidetracked. I get more specific about what I need to complete the projects infused with that feeling. And everything just becomes more interesting in life that way, instead of the demand that we meet the goal. So I want to ask Jean and Val to talk about a little bit, probably the difference between making goals and intentions for you two. Like, how has that been different in your creative life?
Well, I'll speak to it. You know, I really never thought about the word intentions until Kelly started working with Val and I with the store, and when we were doing the transition and stuff. And it took me a little bit to kind of get into it and to understand it, but it's been very successful for me. And I look at words differently, and I'm also not putting pressure on myself. You know, the word goal, I found to be kind of pressure filled. You know, it's an expectation. And then if you don't do it, you know, I was feeling bad about myself. And maybe it wasn't the right goal for me, or maybe I changed during that process, but felt like I had to stick to it. So there was something about that word that really wasn't a good word for me. So, you know, I've learned to look at things differently through intentions, and it's been really valuable for me.
You know, I think I never was a resolution sort of gal or goal in that sense. They just never resonated with me. They felt
School bookish.
yeah, I don't know. They just didn't resonate. So I just would carry on, you know, it's the beginning of the year. Here we go. What do you got to get done this year? What are your deadlines? And then when I started working with Kelly, and we, you know, I used to separate my life into these little boxes. There was the mom, there was the artist, there was the daughter, there was the business person. And I would separate then like my creativity out of that. Like my creativity happened in my studio and in my fabric design and in my art. And as Kelly and I started working together, I learned a different perspective. One, I had to burn those boxes because you really aren't these separate people or these separate beings. You really are just one being working through all these different avenues that create your life. being a mom, being an artist, being a business owner, they're all one thing. And so my creativity actually runs through everything. And the whole concept of intentions was what created this. How do I want to show up in this world? And what type of person do I want to be? Which, when you make these intentions of who you want to be, it infuses into everything you do. And then when you're in the studio, you can have the same intention as I do when I'm doing the dishes, right? And so I think that for me, intentions have made my life feel more as one unit, as opposed to it being these separate little bits of me that make me into this weird being that isn't fluid. So like for me, I think intentions, I'm just going to tell you my intentions for this year because it's hard to talk so esoteric about it to a certain extent. So I always kind of start with a word, and then my word always has like all these paragraphs of and lines of intention within it, right? And they fluctuate throughout the year. Sometimes they evolve and grow into something bigger. And so my word for this year is grace. And Kelly made a comment recently that all of our intentions and words that we pick, that we make our mantra for the year, all these places where we want to be better or whatever, they're all things that are inside us. And it's about nurturing that bit of you that then becomes more a part of your daily life, so that then you can like nurture another part of you. So last year, my word was brave. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what being brave is. And then I incorporated it into my life. And now brave is not gone. It still needs that nourishment, but now I have grace. And for me, grace means having grace and kindness for myself, because I know my internal dialogue is dramatically mean comparatively to what I would ever say to anybody else. And I'm sure a lot of you can attest to internal dialogue being your worst enemy. And so I want to have grace and kindness to myself, because then when I can do that, I show up in this place of love and kindness, and I have the ability to then have grace for others. And then they can become their best version of themselves because I'm giving them that space. So for me, my intentions this year are to have grace with myself. And I got to put myself first, which is a really hard thing. And most women have a very hard time putting themselves first because we feel selfish. And society has always said no. So I think that self-care comes along with having grace. So because when I can take care of myself and treat myself really well, then my kids see that that's what they should do. They see that like taking care of yourself creates kindness and love and all those things. Whereas if I'm beating myself up all the time, my 16-year-old and 14-year-old are going to feel that, and they're going to probably do the same thing. And I don't want to perpetuate that. So that's kind of how my intentions grow and move. And 2 months from now, grace may have more to it. It may have more depth because I've looked for it more often. It's become in the forefront of who I am as a person right now. So I'm going to see it more. I honestly, ever since I picked the word, I hear the word all over the place now. And then people will say, you need to have more grace for yourself. And I'm like, I do. I'm working on that.
You know, the other thing is bringing it, because some of you that are makers and you're like, well, tell us about intentions for making stuff, that like for Val is a good example, because when I think that, so if I know I didn't say this in the beginning, but I actually do consulting and coaching. So when I'm working with someone, I would say the primary thing that I hear from people is self-judgment. It's the little voice in their head that doubts and stops themselves from making the thing or choosing this crazy palette or saying the thing, speaking on stage, whatever it is, it's the internal dialogue. And so an intention like grace, how does that manifest in your actual making? It would be that when you go to put something into the physical world and you're creating something, if you have a softness towards yourself, a grace towards yourself, then you won't be so judgy about the options that fall out of your normal realm. You know, we get very habitual about what we're willing to do in our creativity. And then we follow a certain set of rules, whether someone else told us that or we made them up along the way. And then we'll find ourselves just saying, nah, I won't do that. Or do those two things go together? And then we doubt ourselves and then we don't do it. We fall back to what we always do. So having grace or kindness or love or presence, any of these words that are resonant, they help us to just stop for a minute and say, what's really true here? Am I willing to try something different? Am I willing to take the risk that there'll be judgment or that, you know, I'll probably be the worst judge of it? So it's the reason that these intentions of who we're going to be are so important in creativity is because we are the only person truly that limits our creativity is our mind. So if we can have grace with ourselves or kindness, then we start making different choices because
yeah, I was going to say, I can tell you exactly how it affects my studio time because this is something I've been playing with for, several weeks. And how grace affects me when I'm in my studio is I have I shouldn't say that. I have more possibilities. I see more things.
Because you're giving yourself permission.
I see, I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about printing because I'm in the middle of printing this large piece and it takes a lot of layers and doubt and all these things. So when I doubt something, the grace that is living within me now when I'm present and when I'm in the moment and I'm not worrying about the future or the past. And I'm like, boom, I'm in on this project right now. And there are times where I'm like, oh man, I sure hope that was the right decision. But because I have this intention of being kind and graceful to myself, I'm like, well, you'll make it work in some way or another. And then another idea will pop up. Oh, what if you tried this? What if you use this block? And so it opens up the possibilities.
Yeah.
And so I would say that is exactly how grace has affected my studio. And I then have more ideas. And it's almost like my mind has this permission to explore new things and something different when I'm giving myself grace and kindness. So,
that it also leads to another good point, because the thing we didn't say in the beginning, which we do say in the beginning of the creativity experiment, is to consider that to be creative is a state of being. So being, if I be angry, that's a state of being. It changes. If I'm happy, it changes. So does creativity, but it is already within you. So it's a state of being that you're allowing to rise within you. And if any of you, all of you, I can't see all your faces, but all of you in here already have that within you because you're here. There's no other way about it. So you don't need to
look for it.
Be lesser. Yeah, you don't need to work to be more creative. If the curiosity is there, the assumption that when you're in the state of being creative, you allow that to happen, you soften, you're open, and then things are going to arise. You'll be like, oh, look at that. I didn't think of that before. So it's when you be in the state of creativity that opportunity arises for us. And so all the thinking, the judgment, the demand that I must finish this, got to do it this way, she said that, all of that stuff is diluting that state of being. So it's really that ability, and your state of being is your mind, your body, your emotions. It's not just a state of mind, it's a being. So you can feel in your body, if you can just, settle down, soften, you're gonna get to a moment when things start moving. So that's what part of this is when we have intentions where if you're gonna, for me, be present or be kind were two of the major ones last year. So I'm gonna practice that everywhere. when I'm talking with you, when I'm out in the world. It's all practice so that I can be in the state of presence more often. And then when I come to make something or do a project, it's going to be a lot easier for me to pull up a state of presence and be with what I'm doing because I've been practicing everywhere else. So it's not like I do it one place and not in the other. You practice these things everywhere. You be creative in every conversation, you know, wherever you are with everyone in every environment, you get to practice the state of being, creativity. And if you don't know what that feels like, I know you know it because you've had it. But if you can't pull it up, that's a great intention, is to just say, what would it be like this year if every morning I had my tea and I just let myself soften enough to feel open and creative. You know, those things feel like a big challenge sometimes, but if we just do a little bit every day incrementally, it adds up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to be creative, and you can soften and know, yeah, I can do it right now. I can be creative in this conversation or this project or this challenge. And then the other thing is that when you have that ability to tap into that, you ask more questions. So that may be of yourself, or it may be finding a resource. If you're like, wow, I'm really limited in my color. Like someone was talking yesterday about color on the intentions call we did, or 2 days ago. They were able to recognize, I just literally don't have the skill set in this area. I can ideate, I can see things, but I need more skill in color. And when we are present and have more grace for ourselves, our ego gets out of the way and we say, I really need help with that thing right there. And then we go find help, we get the thing we need, and then our creation becomes more fluid. So that awareness of who we're being is it opens so much, it opens so many possibilities for what else there is. Did you want to say something?
There's something I wanted to respond to, kind of back a couple sentences with Kelly, about, like having that cup of tea in the morning and whatever. It doesn't mean you have to go into your sewing room or your studio and sew something. That isn't what it means. It means that you think of the world differently. You think of yourself differently. And so, I just find these words are really helpful to me. And, you know, it was interesting last year because a lot of the people that I know, and I know through the store, had things happen. And I wrote a little note, or I did something. I acknowledged how they were feeling to them. And it really helped me. And I received more kindness from others also.
Mm-hmm.
And kindness was one of my
intentions. Yeah. What is your intentions this year, Mom?
Exploration is my big intention. And I've had it before. I just like the word. There is something about the word to me that, for one thing, is playful and it's open. It's really open-ended. And I love the feeling when I'm working on a design of some kind, that feeling that I don't know how it's going to end up. I know a lot of people who start out in quilting, it's so important for them to feel like they know exactly what it's going to look like when it's done. Well, I really don't want that. I've gotten past that. And I like seeing what turns up. And I think it goes back to even my childhood. I remember in the summers that our mom just put us outside to play during the day. And, then we'd go home and have a peanut butter sandwich or something. But, we were just out doing stuff. And so I grew up with that kind of open feeling. And we lived in Redmond, and right on the edge of Redmond, there was a canyon down there. I'll tell you, we did so many different projects down in that canyon. I mean, it was a great playground for us. That feeling of playfulness, I get in exploration. And it also says to me, there's something to find. There's a new idea, a new way of working. And I can remember getting interviewed once for a teaching job. And I said, well, I'm an idea person. And I remember the person then having a conversation with me about that. And I'm not exactly sure why I said that, but I think that just openness really allows you to be that way. So,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of subverbs that I, like to do too. So, and I have them all written down on a little note card that I just leave someplace that I can glance at if I feel like it. And sometimes I'll cross one off, or I might add something. But what it does for me, intentions do, it creates mindfulness. And I approach the day differently now that I've kind of got into this practice. But it took me a while to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And there's no real right or wrong answer to this. And that, I think that's the coolest thing about intentions. It's not like, I am going to lose 20 pounds by the end of March, right? And there's a demand in that. And intentions aren't layered with demand. Intentions are
Curious.
layered with possibility, and intentions are layered with optimism. And I think that intentions are fluid, meaning that they can change, they can morph, and they can grow. And sometimes they can get subtle, and then other times they can rear their head. But resolutions and goals, to me, have such a high demand. And then when you don't reach it, you're like, definitely going to beat yourself up about it, or you give up along the way because it's just really an unattainable goal. 20 pounds in 2 months is really not a smart thing to do, right?
Not fun.
Yeah, definitely not fun. So that's what I think is really important about intentions, is that there is a fluidity and a positive sort of vibe to it, and possibilities.
And let me give you guys a couple more, since most of you are probably fairly new to this, and your mind is going to say afterwards, yeah, well, what do I do with that? And so if we just give it a little bit more structure, it would be that, so if I've had primary intentions for years, 3 of them: be kind, be present, be love. I wanted to explore what would life be like if that was the state of being I was in, well, as much time as possible, increasingly so. Then I said, okay, well, those are great, but then what does that literally look like? So then I went through each of the, what I would consider the areas of my life, and did assessments, curious assessments. How am I in my relationship with Jeff? And then I would think about the actions I'm taking. And I would think, is there things, how can I be more kind, more present, more loving? And then I would just not make a barrage of like, oh my God, I need to do all the things, but I would make a few notes. If I practice that would probably shift some things. That'll be my experiment. And then I went to my physical body, my health, my emotions. I went to my work with my clients. I looked at each of these areas, and then I just get curious. If I was to, or my expressive life, one of the things about me that is true is that you can see, like, that piece up there I made, I never finished that piece. I embroidered it, I dyed it, I sewed it. It's not bound, it's just hanging up there. So something I know about myself is that I really love being in the creative process, but I'm a dabbler. And so historically, I always held that against myself. That's a bad thing. You need to finish something. And then I used that against myself for years. And it was really effective, because you can never feel really great about yourself or really successful if you're always complaining to yourself that you don't complete things. So one of the things when I started looking at love, kind, and present, like, well, that's not kind, and it's not loving, and it's not really present. Because if I'm just present, what I've realized now is I like to dabble and I don't need to finish. And sometimes I start and I don't finish, and all I'm gleaning is not the completion, I'm gleaning the journey. I feel good when I'm doing it. So I'll do it until I don't, and then I'll put it aside or donate it or hang it up half done. So it's that recognition of, you're going to look specifically at the areas where if you have a curiosity to be more of something, well, where aren't you? Or where are the habits you've set in place that aren't helping that? And then you just, I'm going to say the word again, incrementally, you just say, I'm going to make some incremental changes. I don't need to make big changes, just small ones. And the small ones will create momentum to get to those bigger moments. So it's just to understand the structure. You don't want to stay so in the like you said, Val, esoteric of these feelings. You want to bring it down to the earth and say, I live on the earth, I'm human. What are the actions that are going to fit with this? And again, you don't want it to be too, like, you don't want to be looking for fails either. You want to make these things attainable and then add another one that's attainable with that optimism, like Val said, being the thing, you know, how can I like myself more while I'm here on the earth? And that will radiate out to others, you know, that's going to ripple out to others. If that's in my artwork, that's good. People are going to feel that. And so it's the recognition of that, how much you matter, so that going into these things can be really, really fun and curious. I was going to say, should we open it up to see if anyone has any there you go. You're on the same page. Great minds. If anyone has any questions about this, please raise your hand, or just, I guess, raise your hand.
Or just unmute yourself and
just holler, hey. Or no pressure. You don't have to ask any questions.
Mom and I are like, who's there?
Yeah, we're trying to.
We still can't see most
Joan
people, but...
Fox, why don't you unmute yourself? I saw. Oh, there she is. So what did you want to say?
Fire away.
I just wondered how this translates to your creativity experiment that you do. Like, do you involve intention with each monthly project? Is it an assigned project, or is it just a statement and then you go wild with it?
Okay, so it's funny because I think that as we do this, we evolve. And so our goal is we have conversations, and then we do these fun little experiments that are not meant to be works of art, right?
A big project.
They're meant to be
experience.
moments of creation, right? And some of them will resonate and some of them won't. So every month, how it works is we kind of have a theme.
And we have a word or an idea that we explore, the three of us,
that relates to your life as a human being in this world. But we always relate it back to creativity, because especially, you know, and people would think that for Kelly, you know, she's a, you know, a mentor, she's a life coach, whatever you want to label it as. You wouldn't think that she's like, I got to work on my creativity. But for Kelly, her creativity is expressed in what she comes up with when she is helping people, right? So everybody has, the creativity runs throughout everything we do. So we will, you know, our first month is about intentions, because that's the starting off place of how you find out kind of where you want to go.
Like a direction. It sets you on a course.
Yeah. And then we do little experiments, and sometimes my daughter is recording and she interjects her thoughts on it. And it's fascinating to hear about a 16-year-old and what they think. And then as we're progressing, we listen to everybody, and we have this little community. It's kind of like a Facebook posty thing where people can interact, and we can share pictures, and we can talk about our journey, because not everybody's on the same month. And then as
people respond to each other and get conversations going.
So it's a beautiful little community of artists all on their own journey, right? And a wide variety of artists at that. And then the fact that we're just trying to give little nuggets of things that we have, because everything we give and everything that we talk about is stuff that we've experienced and gone through the whole process of it, right? And the process always involves there's times of discomfort, or maybe things not working, and then these successes, and how we journey through that. And we talk about, you know, just ways that you can incorporate these things into your life. Because a lot of times they're subtle. It's like you're dripping, you know, it's like these little drips of thoughts and insights that then you're like, oh, I just saw myself do that. Or, oh, I should be a little bit more kind to myself. That was a really mean thing to say. You know, this is actually a really beautiful piece of work I've created. So
like the overall, just to answer the intentions, is everybody's on their own journey, right? It's like we all have our own intentions, but then each of the prompts, the experiments, is to help you delve deeper into that. It's the same thing for each of us, but we have our own interpretation based on our experience and where we are in our creativity. So,
you know, there may be a month where you are just slammed with a lot of unexpected things or whatever, and these get posted and you can go back to them and look at them. Or if something doesn't resonate with you, you can kind of do your own thing that month.
yeah. The other thing is just what you prompted by asking that question, is that I think sometimes we forget why we're creating. Sometimes we get on this pathway of life and we're just like on the highway and we just keep going. And sometimes something major happens in our lives that makes us stop and think, what am I doing? And so for me, these kind of experiments, I always have used the word experiment because I feel like life is one big, it's play. It's a playground. We get to explore and then course correct. We don't have to stay on the highway. And I think with creativity, sometimes we get going and we get so mentally consumed in the projects we're doing or our style that we get a little dulled out, and then we get stuck, or we don't really know how to turn anymore. And I think when we go within and ask different questions, it kind of shakes it up. You know, the brain actually responds really well when we go on trips, right? You go away with friends for a weekend, or you go on a vacation for a week, and you come back and you are thinking in a new way. You're, oh, I see with fresh eyes. So I think when we go inside and we be curious and ask these kind of questions with intent, we shake it up ourselves. The brain starts thinking differently. We start seeing things differently. And that keeps creativity alive and awake. You know, it's why we look at some artists and we're like, whoa, what is it about that piece? And then we look at someone else who's beautifully constructed something, but there's just no mojo there. And it's not that the artist isn't amazing. It's just that it's like you can tell there's a little disconnect, like they're not in the art, you know. And I feel like that's when they've probably just gotten on the highway for a while and they've forgotten to be in the art. So and then before if there's anyone else that has a question, I wanted to just go back to something Jean said that I wanted to kind of highlight, because I thought somebody in here needs to hear this again, is that we get really, really, really serious. We are so serious about ourselves and our lives that playfulness, you know, even just feeling Jean talk about going to the canyon, play is the ultimate in creation. We get very concerned that what we're doing in creativity is so serious, like we've got to get it right or choose the right thing or make it the right way. But then when you're a kid and you don't care, no one even thinks about anything when you're a kid. You're just like, let me try this with this and this with this and this with, and then they make the art and then they throw it away. It doesn't even matter. So it's getting into the playfulness of, what if I wasn't so serious about this? Then what would I do? You know, if I wasn't so serious about this conversation, then what would I say? You know, and that's my intent for this year, is more joy and more playfulness, because one of the ways I've held myself back is like, how playful am I willing to be? Like, am I willing to say that goofy thing, or am I willing to be that playful? And then I would get uncomfortable. I would stop myself. So for me, that's the thing this year. Like, how playful am I willing to be, and what will the result of that be? You know, how will that change my life? What kind of friends will I have? You know, how will my expression change? So I thought that's a good one, Jean. You brought it up, and it's just I don't know anyone that couldn't use a little more playfulness within their thinking.
And you always say, like,
and then Anne, yeah,
you always say to us, you know, your state of being brings you, like, who you are in this world brings you back that. Right. So if you're going around pissed off all the time, you're going to have a lot of anger in your world coming at you.
You're going to get that back.
Yeah. Whereas if you're playful and you have an impromptu dance party, someone's going to dance with you, you know. And I say that because Kelly likes to dance and she has a lot of dance parties. So
we've been doing morning dance parties every single morning.
She's having her dance party with herself in the studio.
That's right. Yeah, every morning lately I'm doing that. Go ahead, Anne. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. So my question is, I have a friend that's in this experiment, and you guys have been going for almost a year, I think. Mm-hmm. So if we wanted to join, how do we sort of get integrated, catch up? Does it
There's no
change?
catching up,
There's no
where it's like
catching
a membership. So you get in and
Drop
you'll,
in when you're ready.
yeah, you will start, like if you signed up today, you would get in there, you would get the first experiment. And then even though someone else is on the 8th experiment, we're still talking about creativity. So in the group, it's a common conversation. You know, when you post in there, or if I send something or Val sends something out to you in email, it's speaking to everyone. You know, we're
No matter
all
where
working
you
through
are.
intentions.
Yeah, no matter where you are in the program, which is
Right.
kind of the beauty of it, which is why when we say it's your journey,
You can choose to skip one if you want.
no, you can't.
Yeah.
It comes in order. It doesn't work that way.
Oh,
Mom.
well, I know.
Well, if you're in there for 10 months and then you want to,
If you're in there for, yeah,
you can, but you won't be able to go ahead. It'll drop one out
there's-
every 30 days.
yeah. And there's a reason behind it because we're setting a foundation, right? And we're setting this foundation of how you can look at your creative journey in a different way. And it's still like super open-ended to interpretation, but our foundation kind of is this, like, start thinking about this first and try this experiment. And then next month, you open it up and you're going to think about this. And when you come to the community page, once in a while, people talk about like where they're at in the program, but for the most part, we talk about just
Things
being
in general.
creatives and living a creative life. And this is what I'm thinking about right now. And this is the art I'm creating. What do you guys think? Or this is a book I'm reading.
Or I went someplace and look what I saw,
Right.
and this is what I'm going to do with it. So you don't really know where they are in the experiment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's kind of like,
It's open,
yeah.
but it's more like just conversations, I would
Mhm.
say.
Which I find super inspiring because we have people from all over the place, and everybody, comes from a different background, and they have
Right.
different.
They're not all quilters. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you learn a lot, and for me, it's like a spark, you get these little sparks of things, which actually, the creativity experiment and all the work that we've done since we launched, in December, Mom and I started our own little experiment that just to spark our creativity back and forth. And a lot of that happened because of what we've been doing and how we've grown.
Yeah. for
And
sure.
it was really fun to, Val would put something up online and I'd look at it and think, oh, what does that make me think of?
Yeah.
And you never knew what it was going to be. And then, it'd be a day or two and I'd put something up, and we did it on Instagram, and then
We're still doing it.
she would look at mine, and I just last night responded to one of hers.
I know. And it's like, it's opened my mind to like a different way of creating. Cause I'm not like creating a masterpiece. I'm more like having fun and just playing with this idea of this inspires me to do this. And it's kind of all been generated by all the different activities and experiments that we've gone through over this past almost a year. So it's, it's a personal journey, but it's a great community too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just have one short follow-up.
Mhm.
So I can see for myself that exploring intentions would be interesting and probably also challenging. So especially because of the pandemic, and I already feel like
Yeah.
I'm, kind of on my own a lot. So would there be opportunities to bring that up with the group, or?
Yes,
Of
absolutely.
course.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And after we just did an intention call with our group, and after that, because of this pandemic, we don't get a lot of this connection, right? I mean, I literally am at home and I'm at the store. Like there's not a lot of other stuff that happens. So we are going to start adding Zoom calls once a month that are, we'll kind of pick a subject and then read, and this will be for everybody. Just arrives, we do a Zoom, we talk about it, we record it, post it in the group, and you can see it.
What was really fun about it, it's the first time we had done one of these group ones, was just for me when it opened up and seeing everybody's face.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what COVID, a lot of has happened to us.
Mhm.
And I
I
know,
know, because we never would have used this before. Like, really, we would not have all been randomly all over the country on a computer looking at each other. We would have just gone locally, you know, we would have seen each other.
and you
Yeah,
know,
it's different.
when COVID did happen, you know, it was really
Still happening.
I know. When it started, put it that way, it was really scary because we had to put everybody on furlough, and it was Val and her, you know, 13 and 15-year-old and me. And, you know, we were just lucky we had some online sales that we could at least keep bringing some money in. I mean, we had to completely reinvent the store and ourselves just for survival. And it's these kinds of things that I've started teaching online.
Kept us going.
And I've been able to visit with people who could never come to Sisters and maybe knew who I was from my books and wanted to take a class. And I've made new friends. And, you know, it's been really good. And I think for me, also being an older person, it's really kept me connected. Valis. Yeah, I have to go to the store.
I don't think
sometimes
about her that way,
for
right?
my people fix. But
Yeah.
no, it's been really good. And I know I'm in a mini group, and that's how, you know, we've stayed knowing each other is just through our little Zoom calls. But I don't think you need to worry about if you're on month 2 and I'm on month 11. You aren't even going to know the difference.
Yeah.
if that
And
answers-
we'll definitely have more personal interaction now because we want it. It was just so fun to be on the Zoom call, and it
Oh.
seemed like there's so much to talk about. So I think we could get on there and talk about creativity without a particular subject. But
I
you
do.
know, Jean, that was a good point, because I think all of us, the pandemic is still happening, right? We can't help it. Even if we want to will it away, it is like, it's happening all around us right now. It's just even more contagious, and some of us are more at risk. So it's that awareness that we are tired of this, but also this is also why intention can be so valuable. Because, for instance, one of the logistic things I've done historically is I put post-it notes. When I had an intention that it felt like wasn't so accessible, where I was maybe getting caught in my loneliness, or so last year I did have a lot of grief. My mother died, my dog died, my dad almost died. It was like this ridiculous amount of nonsense that seemed like it just kept coming, and it wasn't nonsense, it was big stuff. But that place of, oh my gosh, and how am I supposed to feel this, you know? So putting post-its, you know, where I'm brushing my teeth, I put a post-it note with a heart, you know, be loving to myself, you know, be patient, be kind, be playful. Like, just these notes I leave around everywhere to just remind myself, like, yeah, I'm not alone, I can access this. And so I think with the pandemic, it's a good time to look within. Like, we've been forced to do this, so why not take advantage of that and just think, where do I want to go from here? It does feel like, even though we're in it, we must be, it feels like things are shifting towards like, where, whatever, this is going to be changing still, and we're hoping to be back in person soon. But this is an opportunity to look at, you know, what we really want to create right now.
And, you know, I count my blessings that I have this interest of being a maker. I mean, thank God. I mean, I got to the point I didn't want to make any big quilts or anything, but I discovered making rice bags.
Oh, geez,
These Japanese rice bags.
It was like
But
a pandemic
the
project.
was this big. I was only designing that kind of space, and I could do one in an evening, get all the pieces laid out, and then I would sew it up and I embroider it and finish it. And I do another one and another one. I've probably done 50 other things. And, you know, I ended up selling them in the store this summer. But, you know, I really did count my blessings that I had something that interested me. And I think you're all here because you have something that interests you, and the creative word got your attention. So, you know, that's kind of what it's all about.
We have 5 more minutes. Does anyone have a question about intentions or anything before we wrap up? I don't see anyone raising their hand. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Even just talking about it, like I can tell we get excited when we talk about it.
We
So,
get super fueled. I'm ready to go to my studio.
I know. So thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you guys are sparked, that there's a seed planted of something different. So hopefully this was helpful, and have a wonderful
Well, and I was
weekend.
gonna say, feel
Like if they have
free to
questions.
email us if you have any questions, through the shop, or you can do it through the creativity experiment. If you
Yeah.
have questions about anything, obviously we really like to talk about intentions, so we will gladly chat. So, and creativity is a vein that runs through us. And like Mom said, that's why you're probably here, is because of being creative is important to you. And it's important to us. And we thrive when we see people create, and you see people have these aha moments of like, oh my God, I get it now. I'm ready to go. And so, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We're all super available, and thank you for hanging out with us for an hour on a Saturday.
Okay.
I do have
Bye,
one
everyone.
question.
Yes.
I have one question.
Go for it,
Um,
Joanne.
Okay. I couldn't figure out how to get on your site until my daughter came and did it, but we were half hour into your presentation. Did you record
what?
it?
Yes, ma'am. And
Get it?
I will post it on Stitchin Post YouTube channel. Okay.
Stitch and what?
Stitchin Post, STITCHINPOST,
Okay.
Stitchin Post. So
Okay.
that's us, our YouTube channel. And I
Okay.
will also, when I get it uploaded to there, I will make sure the link goes into a newsletter next week. I'm not sure what, I don't know if she'll get it into the Monday. I'll probably be able to get it into the Tuesday newsletter, because Monday newsletter's already done and she doesn't work on the weekends.
Okay.
I'm not that mean of a boss. So yeah, so I will make sure the link goes out in the newsletter for anybody who wants to watch this, and then it'll be on the Stitchin Post YouTube channel.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye.